Grace is a 5-star Shadow Staff unit, and is the first ever healing unit in the game that does not have any form of team healing in her kit. She was a former scientist within the organization known as the Syndicate, but left after her husband was murdered by Alder during a chaotic accident. She has been a widow since, concerningly depressed, and apparently wants Alder to do the same thing to her as what he did to her husband. In terms of her kit, it revolves upon her ability to create life shields for her teammates, sacrificing a huge chunk of her own HP to grant the entire team life shields of equal value. This ability has made Grace an excellent addition to not just the Shadow team, but to mixed teams and even teams of other element, sometimes even a core member for many full auto farming compositions. Without further ado, let's take a look at her kit. Her first skill, Sorrow's Requiem, costs 5916 SP. It does either one of two things, based on how much HP Grace currently has. If her HP is under 40%, this skill will increase the defense of the whole team by 30% for 15 seconds. Otherwise, she reduces her own HP to 30% and grants each team member a life shield with equal HP to the amount deducted from Grace. It is noted that the life shield is able to stack with other types of shields. This skill is what makes Grace stand out from the rest of the healers. She doesn't heal, but gives life shields instead, which is essentially an additional HP bar that gets deducted first before the actual HP bar itself. As the life shield can equal up to at maximum 70% of Grace's maximum HP, having buffs or abilities that increase her maximum HP can actually fortify her life shields. Overall, this skill is the core of Grace's kit, and is an incredible skill that significantly increases the survivability of the team. Her second skill, Earnest Prayer, costs 8534 SP. It is a very simple yet incredibly potent defense buffing skill, granting the entire team 100% defense, with an unfortunately short duration of 5 seconds. This skill can be used to toughen up the team before a powerful enemy attack, but can also be used to proc the healing double buff for herself and teams with double buff set up. Overall, this skill may be potent, but its short duration makes its usability unique when compared to normal defense buffing skills. As a healer that is unable to perform any team healing, there is no point in having the typical recovery potency co-ability. For her co-ability, she instead has 20% force strike buff, which kinda works on her as she does have a unique force strike, but it works excellently with units that have a force strike focus kit, especially on the main controlling unit. For her chain co-ability, it's a shielding ability that nullifies damage up to 50% of a unit's maximum HP when a unit's HP drops to 40%. This chain co-ability is excellent, not only it provides additional damage reduction, but because it can actually stack with Grace's life shields, stacking up to a lot of defense reduction. For her abilities, she has an exclusive ability, Mournful Heart. It grants Grace a unique force strike that has a long charge time. It can dispel one enemy buff and restores 10% of the damage inflicted as HP to Grace, capped at 5% of Grace's maximum HP. She also has additional 30% force strike damage. In terms of modifiers, Grace does have higher force strike damage mods than typical units and grants 800 SP. This ability is important for dispelling and self-HP restoration, but the slow charge rate will limit the opportunities of this ability being used. She also has healing double buff that allows Grace to regain HP when she receives a defense buff, granting 4% HP per 3.9 seconds for 20 seconds. This ability is Grace's main method to restore her own HP to replenish life shields, totaling up to 20% HP restoration at minimum, which itself is quite potent, especially when there are multiple sources of defense buffs in the team. She is resistant to blindness, which when dealing with Kayan, she'll not be blinded even when making contact with his balls. This is good as she'll never miss at strikes, but she'll need to manage her moves carefully when inflicted with poison. Because Grace is so different from other healers, the typical healing setup would not work on her at all. With her life shields equal up to 70% of her maximum HP, and also takes away her HP during casting, Grace will need to enhance her own HP regeneration ability and her maximum HP. She'll go well with more HP, and healing double buff, with them being top priority. With those sorted out, she'll need to have increased skill haste, to allow Grace to cast her life shields faster. She can also have some light resistance abilities, to hopefully maintain more of her HP. For auto farming compositions, 100% skill prep is also recommended to proc the life shield immediately when entering a battle. For her dragon, my highest recommendation will definitely be Azazel, as he has both HP and skill haste buffs, both having decent modifiers. Ebisu is surprisingly a good option for Grace, as he has the highest HP modifiers among all shadow dragons at 40%. Her third choice would be Nidhogg, which grants decent HP modifiers. Among these three options, Azazel and Nidhogg are farmable, while Ebisu is a dragon obtained for free from the New Year's event. As for her team setup, she blends in very well in any team. She can literally replace the role of a healer in any team she's in. She can also be teamed up alongside another healer, to pretty much guarantee fast life shield casting in exchange of DPS, which is a common strategy for auto farming certain Agito stages. But, she goes especially well with teams that have a double buff setup, as this allows her HP to be regenerated way faster. As of this video, there are 2 units that have team-wide healing double buffs, Templar Hope and Rennie. The teams that these two are in consist of Grace, a defense buffer, a DPS unit, and a random unit, if there is room for one more. For her Wimprint setup, this is what I will equip on her for a typical run, when dealing with enemies that do not pose too much of a threat. For more serious situations, I'll include 100% skill prep and focus on shield fortification, while having her as the main controlling unit. This is also the build for co-op, as manual control will allow her to have a decent skill haste without any haste prints, thanks to the Agito weapon skill that boosts attack rate. Grace was a fresh sight to see during her debut, being the first healing unit that doesn't provide healing. Despite all that, her peculiarities actually made her one of the most sought after units in the game, due to her multi-team compatibility, and being one of the core members of auto farming teams for all standard and expert Agito stages. As for weaknesses, she can't cast life shields when she isn't able to get her HP back after casting a previous life shield, which means that she'll have to get her HP back in any way possible before casting her next life shield. Overall, Grace is an absolutely amazing unit to have in any team, and is a definite recommendation to get her if possible. Now go out there and assist in improving Grace's mental state, allowing her to finally move on from the grief of her husband's death, and the guilt from all the research she has done during her time with the Syndicate. That's all from me. Moga out.